The discussion around Dallas has taken on a different tone in recent days, especially following the aggressive moves made to reinforce the defense. There is a growing belief that the foundation of the front seven is finally starting to look the way a dominant NFL defense should look. With Quinn and Williams added to the interior and Logan Wilson joining the linebacker group, the heart of the defense now carries more size, power, and consistency than it has in quite some time. Alongside Clark on the inside and Overshown flowing at linebacker, the Cowboys suddenly have a front seven that can dictate physicality instead of reacting to it. That kind of structure doesn't just improve one area, it reshapes the entire defensive identity from the inside out. Welcome back to Cowboys News Reports, your daily source for the latest Dallas Cowboys news, roster updates, defensive transformations, and everything unfolding around America's team as the season intensifies. As Dallas continues to reshape its roster in real time, every transaction now carries playoff consequences. The organization is no longer operating with long-term patience alone, it is aggressively balancing present urgency with future stability. And the moves being made now clearly reflect a franchise that believes this defense still has something meaningful to become. From a strategic standpoint, the pairing of Quinn Williams and Logan Wilson represents two very different timelines colliding into one shared purpose. Quinn Williams brings immediate disruptive power, a true interior force who demands constant attention from opposing offensive lines. Logan Wilson, meanwhile, provides stability, range, and leadership at linebacker. Together, they transform the middle of the defense into a unit that can anchor the entire structure. While neither move guarantees instant dominance, both moves undeniably raise the baseline of physicality and accountability inside the defense. At the same time, there is a quiet acknowledgement that while the front seven is improving, the defensive backfield remains the unresolved pressure point. Pressure up front only matters if the coverage behind it can hold long enough for disruption to arrive. The Cowboys know that pass rush must be earned through run defense first. If opposing offenses can run freely, no amount of pass rushing talent matters. Stopping the run is the tax every defense must pay before it earns the right to hunt quarterbacks. There is also an underlying sense that these moves did not emerge from long-term patience alone, but from urgency created by expectation. Public comments created internal pressure. Statements about making meaningful upgrades turned into accountability that could not be ignored. One addition alone was never going to satisfy the message that had already been sent into the public space. Once that expectation existed, it demanded follow-through. And that follow-through arrived through star power. The timing of these moves added to the intrigue. Instead of acting early, Dallas waited until the final hours before the deadline to finalize the major acquisition. That delay fueled the perception that the organization found itself boxed in by its own words. If the commitment to improvement was authentic, it needed to show up on the transaction sheet. And in those last hours, it finally did. There is also the wider league context that shaped the trade environment. Some players, no matter how valuable, simply do not cross divisional lines. Rivalries still shape front office behavior in ways that analytics alone cannot override. Teams are built each year to defeat specific opponents within their division. Strengthening a direct rival even during a rebuild carries long-term consequences that extend beyond one season's standings. Those choices echo for years through draft strategies, free agent spending, and competitive balance. That philosophy has existed for decades across the league. Franchises build with division rivals always in mind. Beating the familiar enemy remains the shortest path to postseason relevance. From Baltimore to Pittsburgh to Cleveland to Cincinnati, from New England to Buffalo to Miami to the Jets, rivalries still shape team identity. Few executives ever forget which opponents truly determine their season's fate. While the Cowboys were active, other teams across the league chose caution. Some contenders hesitated. Others were outbid. Some remained trapped within divisional politics. In the end, movement still reshaped expectations across the league. Interior defensive power shifted. Quarterback rooms adjusted. Offensive strategies recalibrated in response to new threats. At the same time, quarterback decisions elsewhere sparked conversation. When Arizona pivoted at quarterback, it raised immediate questions about timelines, contracts, and organizational direction. It illustrated the ongoing conflict between short-term competitiveness and long-term investment. These choices reflect the business side of football colliding with momentum and locker room belief. Back in Dallas, however, attention returned quickly to the Cowboys' most glaring defensive weakness, the perimeter. While Quinn Williams solidifies the middle, it is the cornerback position that has absorbed the most damage this season. Coverage breakdowns, late reactions, and surrendered explosives have repeatedly flipped momentum against Dallas under national spotlights. These breakdowns have not been subtle. They have directly altered outcomes. That vulnerability in the secondary has defined key moments in multiple losses. Quarterbacks have found too many clean windows. Receivers have operated with too much space in crucial downs. Leverage has been lost far too often. And when those breakdowns happen, pressure up front becomes irrelevant. The coverage simply collapses too quickly for disruption to matter. This reality has kept attention fixed on any available corner with proven NFL production. The emergence of Asante Samuel Jr. as a medically cleared free agent immediately placed his name into league-wide conversation. Before his injury, his tape reflected consistency, anticipation, and technical refinement. His production reflected a steady ability to contest passes and read route concepts with discipline. Across his healthiest stretch of seasons, he demonstrated starter-level performance over extended sample sizes, logging dozens of pass breakups, multiple interceptions, and reliable tackling numbers for a corner of his size. His impact was not limited to splash plays alone. He displayed consistency snap after snap, an attribute that defines trusted NFL starters more than highlight reels ever will. His medical clearance shifts the conversation entirely. Health is the barrier that determines opportunity in this league. Once cleared, the market reshapes instantly. And in Dallas' case, the alignment between need and availability becomes impossible to ignore. The Cowboys' defensive identity now leans aggressive up front. That aggression demands coverage partners capable of holding their ground on the perimeter. The contrast between the interior growth and perimeter instability defines where the Cowboys stand defensively right now. The foundation inside is strengthening rapidly. The outside remains volatile. Until those two areas align, the defense remains incomplete. Meanwhile, the broader defensive transformation since Micah Parsons' departure has forced a recalibration of identity. The Blockbuster trade that sent Parsons away was never retreat. It was redistribution. The Cowboys exchanged a singular superstar presence for draft capital and immediate reinforcements across multiple layers of the defense. That shift reflected a philosophical change. Instead of depending on a single dominant edge presence, Dallas chose to distribute pressure and responsibility across the entire defensive unit. Quinn Williams immediately changed the math in the middle. Offenses can no longer slide protection casually without consequences. Double teams become mandatory. Blocking schemes must account for his burst, leverage, and finishing ability. That alone reshapes how offenses design entire drives. Logan Wilson brings a different type of control. His range allows for flexibility in coverage assignments. His processing speed keeps motion-heavy offenses from distorting defensive spacing. His leadership stabilizes pre-snap communication. These traits do not always appear in box scores, but they appear in alignment, timing, and discipline. Yet even with those improvements, modern NFL offenses rarely attack through the heart of the formation alone. They isolate perimeter defenders. They stress safeties in space. They create leverage conflicts through motion and stacked formations. That is precisely where Dallas has felt the most strain. When a defense struggles in coverage, it invites opponents into aggressive game plans. Quarterbacks grow comfortable. Play callers grow bold. And the margin for error vanishes. That is where reinforcing the cornerback room becomes more than a luxury, it becomes structural necessity. From a roster construction standpoint, the rarity of this moment lies in age, cost, and medical timing aligning simultaneously. At 25 years old, Asante Samuel Jr. sits squarely in the prime developmental window for NFL corners. He is not a short-term patch nearing decline. He remains within growth range. Contract flexibility remains intact. And past tape already demonstrates credible production. The Cowboys' defense no longer has the luxury of prolonged developmental windows at premium positions. The interior has been upgraded with urgency. The back end now stands as the remaining unresolved pillar. Depth alone does not solve coverage breakdowns. Talent does. This season has revealed that schematic adjustments alone cannot mask personnel limitations. Communication may improve. Technique may sharpen. But base ability still determines ceiling. Dallas now understands that reality at full volume. Every offensive coaching staff across the league studies Dallas tape each week, searching for matchups on the perimeter. If those matchups remain favorable, containment becomes nearly impossible no matter how strong the front seven grows. Quarterbacks will always choose the fastest stress point. That stress point has too often lived on the outside for the Cowboys. As the Cowboys push toward the final stretch of the season, the margin tightens across the NFC. Every possession, every turnover, every third down now determines whether momentum builds or fractures. Defensive growth has carried Dallas forward over the past weeks. Yet unresolved weaknesses continue to threaten stability. This season has also exposed how rapidly team identity can shift in the modern NFL. Dallas entered the year built around star edge pressure. They now operate with interior dominance as their primary driver. That is not a weakness, it is evolution. But evolution must be completed at all layers to become sustainable. The Cowboys' commitment to reshaping the defense has been unmistakable. The question moving forward is how complete that reshaping becomes. The front seven is no longer the liability it once was. That transformation alone has returned Dallas to physical relevance. The secondary now stands as the final gatekeeper between potential and vulnerability. Roster construction at this stage of the year no longer exists in abstraction. Every name added or withheld reflects a direct statement about belief in the current group. As Dallas navigates this final stretch, the roster will tell the story long before any press conference ever does. Across the league, contenders reveal themselves not through statements but through urgency. Their moves reflect confidence in the present while protecting flexibility for the future. Dallas has placed itself squarely within that pattern through its recent defensive investments. The Cowboys' path now depends less on theoretical fit and more on execution under pressure. The interior is now built to hold. The linebacker level is now built to flow. The question that remains unanswered is whether the perimeter will rise to meet the same standard as December football tightens its grip. In this league, defenses rarely become elite through one position group alone. Great defenses operate in layers. Each layer protects the next. When one layer fractures, the entire structure bends. Dallas has reinforced its core. The final balance now waits to be written on the outside. As the season accelerates toward its final judgment, the Cowboys are no longer a team defined by hesitation. They are now defined by movement. The defense that once bled space and silence is now reshaping itself through force. The next step will determine whether that reshaping becomes complete or remains unfinished.